Good morning. So, bit of a pullback starting, pretty normal. And you all know we'll be waiting to see what the Fed chair has to say. I'm sure it can't be anything any different, but some tentativeness, I suppose. You never know what'll come out of his mouth. So, we talked about this wide range bar, right? Ending the move. And ending the move means slowing momentum, doesn't mean something more significant than that. But it should start to pull back. And we saw the beginnings of that. Well, Friday and yesterday, things gapped down. They didn't go very far before buyers stepped up. Was simply looking to the left. They were down there right at the pivot. They didn't get it up very far before they stalled and started to roll over. And well, they were up a little bit earlier this morning, and now they're in the middle of yesterday's range. No big deal. Right. And so we've got a line in the sand here, two pivots, and well, we can just duplicate that and drag it down, kind of that area, more of an area than a clearly defined pivot low like that is, where it would stop on the way down, somewhere in here. And I like to, do something like this where kind of just marks off the area, and I can put it on the other charts, make it green, and throw that around there, which is this congestion. So, and it's in the area of the 20 MA, rising 20 MA, rising 50 MA, 20 above the 50, not a huge separation between them, pretty comfortable, which provides a bias that buying a pullback somewhere into this area, give or take, should be a buyable event. And we'll see how far it gets. That low right there is the pivot on the hourly. And then, so getting below here, because of this little minor void, we should see some pickup in momentum to the downside. We'll see how that unfolds. Since it has created intraday anyway, a relatively significant support point. And you can see the little head and shoulders top there. And we'll monitor that, set an alert down here, and I'll watch it on a 5-minute chart throughout the day, and we'll see how far it goes. I'll take a look at the cues before I get to SPX. And they reached that pivot high. So we look at the S&Ps, we got room to go up. Whereas the leader reached its destination and suggests a little bit more of whatever kind of correction is going to happen here. Yesterday, prices pulled back. They didn't get down to the pivot, so a little relative strength, actually a higher low. And that little box was from yesterday when we spoke. So far, it's just, and this is a frustrating time in a sense, meaning from market wise that, as things rise as they are and they reach, I say, a destination and the pullback starts, you have this, I used the word grudgingly this morning, grudgingly pulling back, which is normal. And there's plenty of thinking, oh, let's buy the dip. And I'm not saying that's the wrong bias, but I'd prefer to see it pull back in a little bit more significant area, especially with the weekly chart like this. And I suspect it's going to be more of a pullback in more of a consolidation, that it has to build up an area if it's going to get through this, where the S&P's got room to go. It's not an all-in type of situation. When I say all in at this point, the transports I'll take a look at look decent. The Russell, so, but this could pull back, down below here eventually. We'll see how that unfolds. I was kind of surprised to see the sentiment and the breadth roll over to the degree that it did on this little retracement. So, and this is a, I said yesterday, This is kind of a good thing that it didn't come up here. So there's this hesitancy, not getting overly bullish on the sentiment gauge as this went up. So some apprehension about it, going the way it is. They weren't all in, and now they're right away beginning to get a little nervous. That's good. It was less positive that this couldn't go up, and it's immediately pulling back. So it's the same way of what we've been talking about, the underlying weak breadth in the market. So while the leaders are still holding up pretty darn well, the weaker ones, or the ones that, maybe not all of them, but some of them we're considering like catch-up trades, bottoming kind of trades. They don't advance as much as maybe you may have thought. And so they begin to deteriorate more quickly. And so these gauges are looking at the markets from a very broad perspective, and then understanding what's happening under the hood gives us insights as to the depth and the strength or lack thereof underneath. So when I see something like this, you might and go look at those leaders, who they are, to see, do they look like this, or any of them beginning to crack, which would give us a deeper insight as to the underlying weakness, that if the leaders start cracking like that. All right, so I'm going to go back here for a second just to make sure where that's at, pulling back a little bit more inside of yesterday's range. And inside of the range. And the same story here with that support point down there that we have. And we couldn't get through that yesterday. So this is relatively significant for the futures, around 4,400, give or take, besides being a whole number to come down to. And I would hope it gets down there and begins to level out. And then we might see some rally off of that low. So while a deeper pullback ultimately may be what occurs, it doesn't have to happen all at once. I mean, I'd prefer that, but we'll just see how it unfolds. So SPX, yesterday, I said it was kind of close. I don't know about this being as close as they are, but neither level got hit. And so now we're inside the range. And so the upper level, I suspect, would not get hit up here, since this is still on its way to retracing. And the lower level has got support, which is good. So if it comes down there, so should you play a condor? That's a personal choice. I think the upper end is less likely to get attacked, and it's relatively close. And the lower level, since things are beginning to pull back, as discussed, the wide range bar and all of that, whether it happens today or not, that's of course the unknown. But there is that support down there, so that's a good thing. Just taking a peek at some of the stuff, into more intermediate term. And yesterday we talked about keeping an eye on this to see if it starts pushing higher. Right? The idea of, hey, are they going to raise interest rates? Lots of opinions that they're done. And what I said was, well, who knows? Let the market tell us, and keep an eye on this to see if it starts going up. It's starting to go up, and we'll see how far it gets. And it's 5% now. That's a pretty significant line in the sand. As you see, there's a whole bunch of pivots there. And so as that goes up, the dollar should begin to go up. Here we go. So up a little bit, not a big deal. It's pulled back toward the 50. We'll see how far this gets. Right. So this is just the factory work of monitoring this information to see to guide us as to, rather than others' opinions, what is the market telling us and provide us our bias. 10-year, just in the middle of nowhere, not doing anything, gapped up a little bit. It's just within a mess here. So a lot of uncertainty about, are they going to continue to pause? Are they going to, raise? We'll see partially what he says today. The VIX didn't do anything of significance. Where do I put that symbol? Oh, right there. Got to separate those. A little. Make it easier to find stuff. Yesterday I talked about this retest pattern, and there's an alert here. Didn't even get anywhere near the alert yesterday. So no big deal there. Yesterday really wasn't much of a big deal market-wise. This has got a whole lot of bars and an upside shakeout. 10 o'clock he starts. And then he speaks tomorrow again. So I can't, depending on what they ask him, I don't think they're going to ask him anything that's going to rattle him, but you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. And so just to be aware. So same kind of story, grudgingly beginning to pull back, a little bit more of a topping area there. Just waiting to see how much it can pull back. NASDAQ futures, support, same story. The Dow up against all of this resistance there. Yesterday, we spoke about this head and shoulders type of bottom. We need to, from the bullish point of view, it needs to consolidate here for a while. Then we'll see what happens as far as it getting through that level. And so with that being said, I'm just going to put that there. And what you want to monitor here, just say, all right, just kind of eyeballing halfway in between there as being, that would be normal. That would be normal. And see where that lines up there just below this area right there. It's an unfilled gap. It's worth to set an alert in the area of that unfilled gap. You may not be watching this. You're looking at the Dow. And so a little preparation. There's no unfilled gap there. But give or take, about the area that it's in. And you could look at the diamonds, of course. I'm just going to eyeball it to say right around here. But you don't want to be staring at this stuff all day. Just set alerts and let the computer monitor it, from what you've looked at, give or take where it's at, moving averages around that level. You could even set alerts on the moving averages if you choose to. With the dollar moving up, gold looks like it's going to crack these lows. Looks like, doesn't mean it's done it, of course, but it's got support there. If the dollar continues to move up, it will crack those lows. Moving down pretty quick. Well, look at that pattern. It's kind of neutral to bullish pattern with this bottoming tail bar and pullback there. So you got some longs hitting the bid. Gold, oil. We talked about it being on support. It's not doing anything. Again, set an alert and set it on USO. So as an intraday trader, some of these things that you may not be trading, you need to be aware if they start moving. I mean, look at this crazy Bitcoin. And I haven't checked the news, but geez. Remember, this started to break down and it just exploded. back to the upside, and it's cleared this pivot high here. So that's pretty amazing. Now, that's the ETF thing, Dan, but so why buy Bitcoin, especially, well, the news of this corruption that's been going on with these brokers. But I mean, the weekly, just looking at it from a technical point of view, the weekly is in an uptrend, and it pulled back to minor support, and so I mean, technically, it was like, which way is it going to go? Who's going to win here with the void down below? And it just sprung right back up again. No, I know they want to open up a Bitcoin ETF, but my thought is, why would people start buying Bitcoin because of that? Maybe there's something else. I don't know. Who knows what moves stuff, so on and so forth. But one of the things that I've heard anybody turn the noon on is paying attention to, but this was a big concern. Remember when inflation was getting started? Oh, ags are going up, and nobody's concerned about it. Maybe there's nothing to be concerned about, but these things are starting to rise. And if crude oil starts to rise, I think from an intermarket analysis point of view, that's something to keep in mind as far as this Fed, whether they're going to pause or continue, because if this keeps going up and oil starts percolating higher, and other stuff, food and cars and all that, ain't really coming down. So you want to be aware of some of these things, because you don't want to get blindsided by it. But that's what we're sharing here. Some of the things to have a thought, set alerts, and during the trading day, we'll go about our business with the things that we do. And all yours, Dan.
Good morning, Stephen. Yeah, that's an interesting view, and I'm a total believer in Wall Street favoritism. So you tell me any reasonable story like that, and it makes sense to me, or at least it's on the table. It's being believable. All right, I just had a mighty Mo alarm go off. This is in the weekend letters at 1, 2, 3. We're long puts. Gapping down here pre-market, and we'll look to cover another third over a 5-minute high. And not many earnings stocks. FedEx gapping down here 224. Now we came close to giving this as a naked put trade, and it was my just technical belief that it was not going to gap under here, even with bad news. So we were talking about doing like the 205s or 200s, so that would have paid off, but I didn't do it. But we still look to sell options on the gap day, on the announcement. We just use different strikes. So I'll be watching this to see how it reacts on this support, maybe 30-minute high or something like that. And then I just do a tighter one, like the 217.50s for Friday. Raul TGB. Never heard of that. It's if you were to look at an hourly chart, that would be major support, but it does look lower. It is an end of day bearish base. It's just I would prefer either a 1, 2, 3 or an attempt to move higher intraday and to get rejected. But finally, I personally don't short stocks under $5, more so under 8. So that, that's a specific day trade strategy. How will black get that in grayscale one not. Alex, are you kidding me? It's what Steven just said. It's called politics. That's why can JP Morgan and Goldman get things done that other brokers can't? So that's the obvious answer. And I thought you were in agreement with me, because remember, you and I, the day they were talking about it, and you and I were both saying, oh, okay. You and I were both saying, yeah, they're probably going to get it done. And I'm like, I agree. When Grayscale couldn't. All right, WPM. Yeah, that would have been a nice breakdown yesterday. Gap, void, that, Thomas, shame on you. Here's my 15-minute chart. Here's the opening bar. That would have been a beautiful 30-minute low trade. But yes, it looks lower. Yes, it sure does. But, I also like just pointing out for education where the no-brainer entry was. LVS short watch. That's neutral to me. It's in a trading range. Notice on the weekly, it's staying in the upper part of this. I don't know. I would need more. All right, so KRE regional banks broke down trading range. We'll see if they move on Powell talking. I guess the futures deteriorated a little bit pre-market when they I guess Powell gives some type of pre-printed comments or whatever, just like they do into the FOMC. All right, so this is the grayscale one, GBTC, and there was an article in today's journal that kind of talked about it a little bit, and they were saying that this thing traded at 38% discount to Bitcoin spot, and then with this news from BlackRock that it narrowed down to like, I don't know, 28%, whatever the article said. So they're, the SEC is worried about protecting the public, rightfully so, on this thing, and the manipulation of spot and so forth. But go read the article if you want. Stavros, PayPal gap up. I see it opening flat, number one. Number two, we had this on our list all three of these days. I mentioned this being a no-brainer put spread, but there unfortunately was no juice. With the VIX under 14, it makes our credit selling more challenging. But I do like the 15-minute chart for a day trade. It's showing relative strength to the Qs right now. So put it in a window, see what it does. Rambus, yeah, going sideways 3 bars with a void. Yeah, that's a short watch. This Riven was on my list for the last 3 days. Little EV stock. There was some news in China giving some tax subsidies to the EV sector, so that's given a little excitement. But for a new trade, I like this Riven as a bottoming pattern. Here, this must be a bio because it is getting whacked. 19 down to 13 and change. So on spot, I think got an upgrade. And this was on our long watch list from Friday, being an igniting breakout bar. So it still is on my watch list. BOF, I think. I don't know why I'm looking at it, but there's some news on that, but I see it's a new IPO. PCT, nice gap breakout. See, I want to see my monthly. There. Okay, so this could be a bottoming pattern of the monthly. We'll watch that on a pullback. On Dollar Tree, too sloppy. I think it got an upgrade. I'm not sure. Hey, Cesar. This is Winnebago had earnings. Wow, that's an ugly gap. Getting Greg, my internet's blipping. And that was the hardwired internet is blipping. All right, so this is an ugly big gap right to the breakout area. So this one I'm going to watch for provided it bounces. Look at this thing, man. That's look. So no, that's what I just said, that my internet's blipping. And this is my hardwired one. My trade station is blipping in and out too. So and I was looking to see if they had AI in their description on Yahoo Finance. And they don't, but it's some type of imaging or whatever, but they changed their name. This is a new twist. You know, companies have been saying, you know, they put it in their profile. This is what I do, etc. And now these guys just change their company name. All right, Adobe, this gapped up on earnings, got an upgrade today. Let's see how far this can advance. Because if it cannot, I'll say 500 bucks. If it can't get through 500, then I would say we got another call spread opportunity. And we were looking at selling calls on that earnings gap up day. And there's nothing to do now, unfortunately, but I like the monthly. Could be a beautiful bottoming pattern with these Bitcoin stocks moving. All right, Disney low alarm. We are short this. Looks great. Let me set a new alarm. I'll set a new alarm at 90. Low alarm at 88.80. I think is Pal on. I think I read 10 o'clock or something. All right, see FedEx. FedEx getting some buyers right out of the gate here, but I am surely not doing anything at 9:31. So 44. We did not meet our $1.30 target in this, but I moved at 5-minute high for another third. Wow, this marijuana is just incredible. Hey, Alex, you'll have to help me later fix the